dog training really comes down to more like people training.
I was just about to say, it sounds like you're going to be training me.
Yes, it's absolutely people training.
Welcome to Life Unleashed,
the podcast all about creating the best life for you and your furry best friend.
If you're a dog mom on the go, juggling life, work, and the endless joys of being a dog parent, then you're in the right place. I'm Dani.
And I'm Nick.
And together with the incredible dog mom community from Tails Up Pup, we're here to share advice, stories, and the obsession we have over the love for our dogs.
Get ready to laugh, learn, and lean on each other because life with your dog just got even more awesome.
Welcome to the Life Unleashed podcast.
Thank you.
Everyone, this is Lizzy
Hello.
of Pawsitive Vibes Training. Is this your first podcast ever?
It is, yes.
Okay, don't be too nervous. This is just casual and fun. We're going to have a great time. I feel like I am probably your worst nightmare because I have the untrained dogs. My dogs, this is their world, and I'm just living in their world. And I feel like the hardest part is like now they're 5 years old.
Yeah.
And I trained them when they were little to, they know sit and stay, but that's about it. And now I feel like a hopeless cause of, they just are who they are. So how do I deal with something like that? Is it too late to train my dogs?
No, of course not. It's never too late to train your dogs. I work with dogs of like all ages, and I just had a 10-year-old German Shepherd that was really reactive that I worked with, and it's never too late to start working on behavior. I met your dogs. They're so sweet. So I totally get how it's like, oh, you're totally fine to just.
You're just so cute
yeah.
too. I'll just let you jump on me, whatever.
Right. And with dog training, really, a lot of it is like what you find okay. So if they're at a point where you're like, I'm fine with your behavior, I'm fine with where you're at, then that's a total, personal choice if you want to work on it. But there's not any age limit where it's like, oh, too far gone, your dog will never learn.
What about like specific breeds? Because like Holly's a border collie. Mm-hmm. We know that they are known for like high activity and like, needing a job.
Yes.
So like what can I do with that information to help her?
Yeah, so the fact that she gets to come to work with you already is amazing for her. Like she gets to have a new environment besides just sitting at home and doing nothing. She gets to interact with you folks during the day. You're playing fetch with her in here. I love that. But with like border collies and high energy dogs, teaching them different like brain games, teaching them how to sit on place and relax, because sometimes working dogs have a really hard time like finding the off switch and being able to settle and relax. Yeah. So I love teaching place, which is just like, hey, this cute little couch you have right here. You can teach them like, go sit on the couch, lay down, and I just need you to relax for a little while. And working on impulse control. And if you're playing fetch, have her sit and wait until you release her to go get the toy. Like all of those different brain games that you can play with her are an excellent like source of getting her energy out.
It's crazy just even hearing you say that. It seems like it's so unattainable because I know her, but I guess it's not too late.
No, not at all. You like literally just have to decide like, you know what, I do want to work on this today, and start working on it in little baby steps and go back to the very basics with her and teach her like, this is what I'm looking for in this behavior, and in 2 weeks from now she's gonna have a brand new behavior in her repertoire.
And what is it like as like the parent, because like I'm out of school, I don't want homework anymore, like how much is going to be on me to do this? So
I think a big misconception with dog training is that it takes up a ton of your time. It doesn't have to. I am a huge advocate of put it into your day. Like it's a lifestyle change. So instead of having her lay down next to you when you're working on, making your really cute bandanas, have her sit on place instead of just laying on the floor next to you.
Okay.
And you start really small. So you have her leash. If she gets off place, you just walk her back onto it and ask her to go back there. Even if you start doing it at home, when you're watching TV, when you're reading a book, like instead of your dog free roaming, put them on place. Or if you want to do something and have a fun activity with your dog, grab their dinner and hand feed them that night and do treat tosses while you sit on the couch and just hang out. Like there's so many ways that you can involve it in your day. When you're making your morning coffee, work on having your dogs hold a sit or hold it down and just kind of get that interaction going with them throughout your day.
And if someone like me like doesn't even know where to start, then like we would come see a trainer like you and get like the basic knowledge. And then is your goal to send us on our way to like keep these habits going on our own, or is like the end goal to keep seeing you to learn new things and like I don't know. What is the end goal?
Yeah. So it's totally personal preference on how long you want to work with a trainer. But my goal as a trainer is to make sure that I equip you with all of the knowledge that you need to feel confident and comfortable maintaining the training long after we work together, because the dogs aren't going to maintain the training on their own. That's all on us as owners. And if we don't know how to keep it up, our dogs are going to lose it.
Yeah.
So it's me being able to teach you really how to work with your dog. So dog training really comes down to more like people training.
I was just about to say, it sounds like you're going to be training me.
Yes, it's absolutely people training. And like 5% of it's like actually working with the dog, but most of it is me teaching you how to feel comfortable and confident with your dog's behavior and how to work with them and communicate with them properly. And once you open these channels of communication between you and your dog, it is insane how much easier your life gets.
How much do you think like training a dog is like raising a kid, like being a parent?
Yeah. So I think it's probably like pretty much along the same lines, right? They're always with you. We love our dogs so much, especially like I feel like our millennials are like always taking pictures of our dogs.
Basically.
Yes. And we are constantly like buying them cute bandanas and like boxes of toys and all of these things. And then when it comes to their behavior, that's like the only part where we kind of see it fall apart a little bit. It's like we can spoil them till the end of the world. And then when you meet a kid that's never been told no, or an adult that's never been told no, you're like, oh, I don't really like you too much. They become like the Willy Wonka kids, you know? So and everyone has a different training style. Like people have different parenting style preferences. So, you know, you really kind of have to figure out what works for you and your dog and what's going to work for your lifestyle. If it doesn't work for your lifestyle and it doesn't matter to you, you're not going to do it.
That's so true.
So it just has to be important to you.
And basically, I guess what you're saying is like there's so many different techniques and ways. And so like not every trainer is going to teach you the same thing. And you have to find the one that works best for you.
Yeah, absolutely. There's like a joke in the training field. It's like there's 100 or as many ways to train a behavior as there are trainers to tell you you're doing it wrong. Like everyone's going to think that they have the right way and they have the perfect answer. But really, especially with dog training, when it comes down to it, it's so important to find a trainer you're comfortable with, that training style fits your lifestyle, that their training style fits what you want to work your dogs with, and all of those different things. Because there's so many different styles out there. So you just have to find what works for you and your dog.
I have to ask, what is your opinion on like a squirt bottle for a dog and like teaching them like not to do something with that?
So a squirt bottle it can work, absolutely, because when you add it to the environment, they're like, oh, nope, I don't want to do that behavior anymore. Long term, you have to always carry a squirt bottle around with you. So that's not like the best long term way to fix the behavior. And that's something that a lot of people will not understand or know. It's like, okay, every time my dog barks, I'm going to spray him with a squirt bottle. And we're really not treating the root cause of why they're barking. Like, what is causing the barking? Let's focus on that. And then you don't have to worry about using a spray bottle anymore.
True.
So
I'm a spray bottle girl, but I don't always have it. So then it doesn't work.
Right. And then you're like, okay, wait, I don't have anything right now. Now they're not listening to me because I don't have the follow through with it.
See, I need to be trained.
Okay. Yeah. And these are all things that like dog training is not an intuitive thing for people to, just know. It's like,
I don't know what to say or what to do.
Right.
So unless someone who is a professional like you would tell me, then like, I don't know.
Yeah. We just go with like, oh, this is what stops the behavior. I'm going to just do that so it makes them stop kind of thing. Instead of like, okay, what's causing this barking? Is it somebody at the window? Is it the sound outside? And how do I train my dog to be calm and comfortable with the sound happening?
What also is very hard is that specifically Holly's like bad behaviors don't happen all the time. It's like situational. So until someone like you walks in the door, she's jumping on them. She's not jumping on me.
Right.
So until I put myself in those situations, then I don't even have the opportunity to train her.
Right.
Like that, I just feel like is really hard because I'm having to get in a situation that I don't want to be in to even teach her that she shouldn't do that.
Yeah. So those are things like jumping is something that is like so many owners talk to me about it or come to me with like, my dog is jumping all over everybody. And it comes down to like just back to basics. Make it so simple. Put a leash on and have her with you when people come in, so she doesn't get to go jump on them.
Yeah.
She's physically with you. She cannot go jump on people and be with you at the same time. And then while she's next to you, you can reinforce her with food or affection, fetch, whatever, while the other person's coming in, and she gets to rehearse not jumping on them. And if someone else isn't coming in, and if she gets excited and jumps on you, sometimes when she's excited, run around with her, get her excited, and as soon as she jumps on you, like, stay still, take your attention away, and then when she's back on the ground, that's when the attention comes back. So she learns, like, oh, just when I'm excited doesn't mean I have to jump up. I can stay down here. The attention continues, the game continues, all of that good stuff.
That is some great advice. Thank you for the
Yeah.
free little advice,
Of
training
course.
tips. What do you have any advice for someone like me who, like, main thing is avoidance? Like, I'm not going to take my dog out because I don't want to have to deal with those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. So that statement is something that if there's reactive dog owners that are listening to this, they can all like resonate with that statement so much, because we don't want to go out and have it be a lot of work and have it be embarrassing. And like,
that's the main thing is the embarrassing. Like, I don't want to seem like a bad dog mom. I don't want my dog to bark at another dog.
Right.
Like, I don't want to have that feeling on me. So I'm just not going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So with reactivity and things like that, avoiding it isn't going to make it any better. So then we just get stuck in this like vicious cycle of, I'm not going to go out because it's embarrassing, but I want to take my dog places, but I don't know how to work on it, kind of thing. And
yep, that's me.
Something that I tell all of my reactive dog owners, I'm like, who cares about that person walking down the street? They're literally going to be like, oh, that dog's barking, I'm going to continue my walk, and like not think about it again. You're the only one that's thinking about it as much as you are.
That's
Nobody
so true.
else is. So there's ways that you can set your dog up to like go and work on your specific training sessions. And once you go out and start really like focusing on their training, you will be so focused and engaged with your dog that you're not going to care about people walking by. And then if you do, again, who cares? Like, they're going to go about their day, and they're probably not walking a dog because they also have a reactive or crazy dog. And so a lot of people just don't care that as much as we think they care in our brains.
I guess that's like anything in life. Like when we're worried about ourselves, even like no one's actually caring as much as you do about your own self. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's ways, like if you're like nervous about it, go find open areas when it's like not so busy. Like we're in Marietta, and so Marietta Square on a Wednesday afternoon is not that busy, and that is a great place to go spend 5 minutes, build your confidence. Like, you don't have to go out and do a whole hour walk, but park your car, walk through the middle of Glover Park, and then go back to your car and be like, ooh, I did it.
See, I would never even think to do that, because it always has to be a whole big ordeal in my head, I feel like.
No, just like start little baby steps for yourself too. Go to a big empty field and get out there and do something fun with her that you both enjoy, and get some quality time outside of, you know, your norm in an open area where if you need to leave a situation, you have plenty of space to go and leave, and like build your own confidence with your training.
Okay, I thought it'd be fun to play a little game. Okay. It's basically true or false, but we're calling it bark or bluff.
Okay.
So I guess bark is true and bluff is false.
Okay.
Is it true that, or should we just say true or false? Is that gonna be easier? Is it true that dogs understand and feel guilt when they've done something wrong?
I'm going to say false on that one. So a lot of times we see it like all over Instagram too, like, oh, look at the guilty dog who did it. And really they don't understand what they did is wrong. They just know that you came in, your demeanor's different, your body language is different, your tone of voice is different. And that's what's causing that behavioral change that we're seeing in them of like, oh, what's happening right now? But they're not going to be like, oh, I tore up that pillow 3 hours ago and now you're mad about that. They don't connect the two at all.
How important is it that the punishment or the praise happens immediately versus like, because they're not going to remember what they did, right?
Correct. So it has to be immediate in order to connect those things together.
So if like I walked in the house and realized they did something, but I didn't know when it was, then I can't really punish them because they would never know it was related.
Exactly.
Oh,
yep.
Wow.
They just know that they're getting in trouble for something. They have no idea what it is.
So then how are they going to learn?
Exactly. It's not going to ever fix the problem of that. So if you have a dog that like tears stuff up when you leave, you can't come home and yell at them. You should crate train them or put them in like a pen environment or something that's safe with things that they can't destroy.
I feel like crate training is so hard for people because in the beginning the dog cries and then you feel bad and then you can't keep up with it because you don't want your dog to cry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is crate training also something that you could do as your dog is older? Like if you didn't do it when they were a puppy?
100%. And crate training has so many benefits to it. Like I have people that will kind of struggle, be like, I don't want to put my dog in a crate. But then you compare it to like, okay, well, what do you do with an infant?
Yeah.
You put them in a crib.
That's so
it's
true.
It's the same thing because you're not going to let an infant just crawl around the house unsupervised because there's all kinds of things they can do to hurt themselves.
Yeah.
And same thing with puppies or dogs. Like if you are having these problems and you need your dog to not destroy your house or you need your dog to be safe, you can absolutely crate train them at any age to do that.
I'm a big crate train girl. My dogs are.
Yes.
Whenever I leave the house, they go in there and then they sleep in there every night.
Yeah.
And I always give everyone a little pep talk when they're getting a dog. I'm like, I know it's hard, but you need to do it because it's like the best thing that you could do.
It really
and
is.
My dogs look forward to going in there. Like that's their safe space and that's their little home. So they love it.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like we're in our dog's business all the time. And if they don't have a crate or a safe place to go, they don't get any like reprieve. What if we didn't have our rooms to go hang out in sometimes, like you want your own space sometimes.
That's so true.
The crate is absolutely like their safe space, their comfort zone. That's where they want to go and like have some peace and quiet. So I love a crate for that opportunity too.
Yeah. What about games like tug of war or really like any kind of like dog game? Can those make your dogs reactive?
No, false.
Wow.
That one's going to be false. There's so much more that goes into like an aggressive or reactive dog than tug of war.
Are most dogs becoming aggressive because of a situation that they were put in, or is it just all different?
It's very different. So there's lots of different types of reactivity. There's some that dogs are just born reactive. There's some that can be like reactive because they're so excited to see other dogs. And then there's definitely a lot of situational reactivity that I deal with from like anxiety and fear-based from situations that have happened.
Yeah.
Like my dog was attacked when she was little multiple times by off-leash dogs that didn't have a recall. And now she's reactive. We've worked on her reactivity for years. So she's much better, but is not an uncommon story. I've worked with so many reactive dogs where the owners are like, they were attacked at a dog park. They were attacked by an off-leash dog on a hike and those kinds of things.
The off-leash seems like it's a huge thing because people think that their dog's nice, so they let their dog off, but then they don't know which dog they're approaching.
Exactly.
And that can cause a lot of problems.
Yeah, they're like, oh, they're friendly. And that sentence like makes me cringe so hard. I hate that sentence. If your dog doesn't have a recall and you cannot reliably get your dog back to you, do not let it off a leash. Because if your dog comes over to my dog and my dog bites your dog, now it's on my dog. And that's not fair to put her in that situation when I'm responsible. I have her on a leash and I wasn't anywhere near you.
That's so true.
So, yeah.
Recall is important.
So important.
And that takes work probably to get to that point.
Absolutely. And if your dog doesn't and you want them to have like that feeling of off leash or freedom, get a 30-foot leash. Get a long line. Your dog doesn't need any more than that, really. They shouldn't be more than 30 feet away from you. So let them run around the field with a long line on if you don't have a recall.
What about punishment? Is punishment effective for dogs or is praise better?
So that one's going to be in the middle, right?
Okay.
You have both ends of it. When you're teaching new behaviors, when you're trying to establish new behaviors and make behavior modifications, you want to be able to reward your dog and reinforce your dog for doing things correctly so they can see that. But also, like, you have a 90-pound German Shepherd jumping on Grandma Betty, pushing her down the stairs. Like, we have to have a way to say, no, that is not acceptable. So you need both of them to have an effective, training.
Yeah.
And that applies in our world too. And in training, punishment simply just means we're decreasing the frequency of a behavior happening. So while we can reward and reinforce our dogs, then we also need a way to communicate with them. Hey, that's not quite what we're looking for, but it doesn't have to be in a really aggressive way that we can do that. So there's simple ways like leash guidance or, redirecting them, interrupting a behavior. That's all decreasing the frequency of a behavior happening, but it doesn't need to be anything excessive like yelling and screaming at your dog for no reason.
Yeah. Should dogs always be walking behind you to show obedience?
False, I would say for that one. Just because your dog is walking behind you doesn't mean that they're like obedient. They've just learned that that's where they're supposed to walk or that's where the reinforcement comes. And there's amazing dogs that I've worked with that walk in front of you. And as long as they're not yanking on the leash, it's a nice loose leash and they're checking in, they're responsive. That's great. You don't have to have a dog in like a perfect heel all the time to have an obedient dog.
How do you even start training a dog that pulls while you're walking?
Yeah, that's like question number one.
Yeah.
How do I get my dog to stop pulling? Really, you just have to go back to basics. Like whenever I start with board and trained dogs teaching their walking, I spend at least 3 days like in my driveway, and I probably look like a crazy lady. I'm just like walking in circles and like doing direction changes all over the place. But the simplest way to work on it is like think opposite day. If you're walking forward and your dog starts pulling you forward, turn around and go the other way.
Oh,
if they
wow.
start pulling to the right, then you go to the left. If they start cutting you off one direction, go the other way. And they're going to be like, what are you doing? And they're going to like start checking in with you a little bit more, getting tuned in with you, and then you're able to start building from there. But you're going to have to take your normal walk around the neighborhood and bring it all the way back to just your driveway for a couple days and then branch out down the street. And it's the consistency.
Okay.
Every time they get ahead, every time they start pulling, you're making a change in what you're doing.
I feel like consistency in all of the training is probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be bigger beyond like your reinforcement or all of that stuff. If you are consistent with what you ask them for and you consistently follow through with what you have asked for, then you're going to be ahead of the game. That's going to be setting such a great foundation for your behavior.
Are only certain dog breeds trainable?
No, every dog breed is trainable. That is another one like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the one dog you can't train. And I'm like, that's not true.
Yeah.
Every dog breed is trainable. It might look a little bit different depending on the dog's personality and genetics of where they get in their training. But the only like untrainable thing that I've worked with is humans. I swear, like your dog can be trained. Can you be trained to work with your dog?
I know. And then the humans are like, oh, I feel bad. So then they're like actually not trainable because they don't want to discipline their dogs.
Right. Or they are like, oh, that seems like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Or that I'm like, well, it's
You
up
have
to
to
you.
do it.
Yeah. If you want.
If you want your dog to be trained, you have to do the
Right.
work.
How can we expect our dogs to have a huge change in their behavior and us not change one thing about our behavior?
Yeah.
It's not very fair.
Expectations need to be
Exactly.
equal. Are boy dogs harder to train than girl dogs?
No, false. That it's so personality based, so genetics based. So like every dog is an individual.
Yeah.
And every dog learns a little bit differently and they're all unique in their learning. And so that's not whether it's a male or a female dog. It's just their personality.
Will dogs grow out of their bad behaviors as they age?
That's another like true false one. So as puppies, we see a lot of like different behaviors. Like if you think back to when your dogs were puppies, you got like 4 different versions of your dog in the first year. You're like, what is happening? You were sleepy and now you're a land shark and now you're like sassy. All of the different things.
All the things.
Yeah, but they really like they grow out of the teething. They grow out of the like crazy zoomy land shark phase usually. But you want to make sure that even in that phase, we're doing stuff to kind of curb that behavior. If they're chewing on your arm, like give them something else to chew on. Don't let them do that. If they're chewing on your baseboards, redirect them, give them something else to chew on or give them something else to do so it doesn't become like too much of a habit that they keep it forever. But most dogs generally do grow out of some of those little behaviors.
Yeah, the puppy behaviors at least. I was going to ask about feeding your dogs human food, but I feel like this question's a little bit like, I don't know. I feel like now more than ever, people are feeding their dogs human food.
Yeah.
So the question is like, is that spoiling them? But then at the same time, like people are wanting to feed their dogs human food now to hopefully get them to like live longer and have a healthier lifestyle.
Right. So just feeding your dog like some pieces of human food from every now and then is not going to make your dog spoiled. That one thing isn't going to spoil your dog. It's going to be everything else that comes with it.
Yeah.
Like same thing with the tug of war. The just tug of war won't make your dog aggressive. There's so many other variables that go into an aggressive dog or a reactive dog. So there's so many variables that go into a spoiled dog, right?
Yeah.
It's really like spoiled dogs just don't have boundaries. They never have to listen. They get to just do whatever, jump up on you, beg for food, take it off your plate. Like that's when they're spoiled. But do I cook my dog's eggs every now and then? Yeah, absolutely. So it just depends how you go about it. And then, yeah, raw diets are definitely like a big thing right now. And that's very different than feeding your dog like chicken and rice every day.
Yeah.
If you're feeding your dog chicken and rice every day, that's like nutritionally not sound. They need way more than that. So that's is very different than like, oh, I'm cooking chicken here, I'm going to toss my dog a piece of that.
Yeah.
As long as they're not begging, they're not jumping on you, they're not counter surfing for your food.
But it's hard to get them to not do that. If you are feeding them from the table, then they're going to be interested in what's on the table.
Absolutely. Or people will be like, my dog's always begging, and then they're feeding them off their plate. Like, yeah, they've learned that that is a very lucrative behavior for them.
So it's very hard to do a little bit and then teach them what they can and can't do.
Exactly. So that goes back to consistency, right?
Yeah.
If I don't want you to beg, I have to consistently not feed you. So that's where put them in the crate during dinner time. And then you can bring it to them later if you want to give them like a piece of chicken or something like that.
Can dogs distinguish between commands, or is it more of like the level of your voice?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
So dogs they don't understand English. They understand.
Really? I feel like mine do.
I know. They understand our tone of voice. They understand our body language, and they understand like the sound of the words when we say it consistently. So that's why sometimes when you say sit in a certain way, they're like, oh, I know that. But if you say it in a different tone of voice, they kind of look at you like, what are you asking me for?
Yeah.
And that's a huge one on recall. Usually when we recall our dogs, we're like, oh, hey, come over here. And then if they're running out of the door, we're like, oh my gosh, no, come back. And they're like, what are you saying to me? I have no idea.
Yeah.
So making sure that the tone of voice you use for your cues is very consistent. Again, consistency across the board is going to make that language between you and your dog so much easier, so they're not guessing at what we're asking them for.
I feel like my dogs do know English. I can tell them a whole sentence. I feel like they're understanding. I tell them my whole life.
Yeah, they're just like, oh wow, sounds like a
what
day.
About those dogs who are so good at commands they can tell the difference between words that rhyme? Like, how do they know that? If you're saying it in the same voice, like, how can they distinguish that then?
So a lot of times if you're like using commands and stuff that are similar, they come with like hand signals too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they can tell the visual signals apart really well. Or dogs that are like really highly trained have had just so much practice and rehearsal differentiating those behaviors that now they're like solid with it. So they have a way better ear than your typical family dog.
That's super cool to be able to train your dog to that level.
Oh yeah.
I've seen a cool video of a border collie where the owner was telling them to go get a certain toy by its name, and like it could go pull all the toys out by name.
Yeah.
I feel like that is like such a high level of training.
It just takes some time. Yeah. You can train your dogs to do that. You just start with one toy and label it this, whatever you want to call it, like get your bear.
Yeah.
And every time you say bear, that same toy comes out, and then you start adding in a second one. That's like your fish. And then you say bear and fish. And then if you say bear and you give them the bear, reinforce them for that. And then you add in toys as they go.
That's so cool.
So it's just, like fun training like that is great for your dog's brain too.
Does every dog that knows sit make them well behaved?
Oh no. No. There's so many times where it's like, okay, so I need a lot of help with my dog. They are chewing everything up and they're barking, but they know sit.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Well, that's not like, it's a great thing to start with, but I'm way more concerned about like their behavior as a whole and like where's their mindset at? Are they able to calm down and have an off switch? Are they going to be responsive and listen and like kind of work with you as a team and engage with you? It's not just like your dog walking all over you and you're like, please do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just because your dog knows how to sit doesn't mean that they're always going to be well behaved.
Is sit the most common like command that you see dogs actually know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the first thing everyone teaches their dog because it's generally the easiest one to teach. So sit is pretty much all dogs have it.
Yeah.
And that's also like, this is random, but like a great tip for if an off leash dog is running at you, pretty much every dog knows sit. So if you can just like step forward and confidently be like, hey, sit. Sometimes that dog will just pop down and you're like, okay, cool.
That is a good
gotta
piece
go.
of advice.
Yeah.
But when you're in that high like intensity, you might not even like think about that.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get out of it.
Yes. But yeah, so it's a very common behavior.
Thank you so much for playing the first ever version of Barker Bluff, which turned into True or False. But I feel like that was very educational and helpful.
Okay.
What advice would you leave us with if someone is listening and is interested in starting to train their dog but doesn't even know where to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you first start training your dog, if you're going to do anything, I want you to start like focusing on your relationship and focusing on how to communicate with your dog. So I always recommend hand feeding at least one meal a day, making sure that they know their name, and creating like a word for them that communicates, yeah, you're doing something right. So I use the word good. Just say good and give them a piece of food. Good, give them a piece of food. And that's going to really help build up your dog's engagement with you. It's going to help get you guys working together. It's going to help your relationship, because if you don't have their attention or their focus or anything, you don't have anything at all. Like we don't want to be begging our dogs to work with us. So be the source of the things that they find reinforcing, so that you get to use that to your advantage when you're working with your dog. Also look into getting a dog trainer. You can train your dog just as a pet. They don't have to be a service dog or a personal protection dog for training. You can just get a trainer for your everyday pet. So look into trainers around you. Find somebody that you like, that you've meshed with well, and is going to be a good fit for you and your dog.
And if they are local to the area, where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm located in Marietta. We can find me online at positivevibes.training.com, or on our Instagram. It's positive_vibes_training on Instagram.
And Lizzy makes some really fun reels. So if you're looking for some cute content, you can also go follow her.
Yes, lots of tips and tricks I try to put out there.
Thank you so much for joining me, giving us all of this information. This was super helpful, and I feel like you're encouraging me to start with something for my reactive and crazy dogs.
Yes, absolutely. I'll give you some more tips.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.